It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Monday, October 16th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have 2G Talks with Eddie Kweon, the Sunday Message Word Study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Monday. You know why I'm singing is because today, when I went to the cafe at 7:30 in the morning, the barista's like, I said to me, like, can I get a latte, please? She's like, you make a latte. Like, she like kind of sang it. She's like, you got to sing your order. And I was like, latte. And then she's like, whoa. So I started with the singing day. But very, very grateful and thankful. I hope you guys had an amazing and awesome weekend. And, of course, a hungry, hungry Sunday message. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message, 2 titles: the work that the Holy Spirit should do and the work that I should do, and the work that the Trinity and the Lord should do and the work that we should do, all right? So that is the Sunday message. I hope you guys really, really enjoyed it. It is Monday, guys. I am super excited and happy because I just still in disbelief by that amazing prayer event. What is it called? Like the Save the World prayer meeting. Man, that was intense. Super intense and super awesome, exciting. I had so many people sending me pictures, like being there. I wanted to be there so badly. I gathered at church to watch it, 10 p.m. to around 12:30 a.m. It was so good. Super duper inspiring, and there's no way the president of Korea or any government official cannot be influenced by that, like, hey, we got to do this right. If there's anyone who's corrupt in any single way, they're probably going to be thinking way more deeply now of what is happening with this trial, and they're going to probably be thinking about it at a much higher level. Because think about this, the great thing about these petitions going off in the foreign countries is, it's one of the things about Asian countries is they want to save face. But imagine all these foreigners signing a petition, seeing like how corrupt or how like unjust the justice system is in Korea, right? There's so many good things about Korea, from like K-pop, K-dramas, like people really like. But imagine they see this, it'll be a black eye on their country. So I think it's something that was incredible. The prayer was awesome and fiery, and I think I enjoyed it well. And I was very, very like fiery about it. And I think part of the fire was the mocha I had right before. I was like, I usually go to sleep by this time. I don't know if I can make it. So I was at a cafe with one of the members before we went. And I had myself a mocha just to make sure that, I didn't want to fall asleep or anything else before that. But I know some other people, they were up until like they started at like 1 a.m. The East Coast started at 1 a.m., which is nuts. And then they have Sunday service the next day too. So, yeah, it was awesome. I'm going to probably talk about this even more. During the broadcast, I saw like the flags come out, introducing Japan and Taiwan. I saw the Malaysian flag. I was really awesome to see them. Like the Malaysian flags were out there. The Philippine flags I saw too. So it was really, really cool to see all those flags out there. Also other countries that were represented. Were there any other countries that the flags were shown? I for sure I saw Malaysia and Philippines. I didn't see any other flags. I know Taiwan was there. And then of course Japan had that crazy huge following too. So yeah. It was an incredible. And I was like, I'm going to say there was no single part that it was like, oh my gosh, like nothing stole the show. Like someone did this incredible speech or word or whatever it was. it was just in general, just seeing that many people. And it kind of made me realize too, is the more we work together, like the more we don't need someone like, like someone who's going to stand out that much. When you have that many people, everyone's watching already, 100,000, 200,000 people just all out there. The entire street all the way down was packed with our members. I loved it, right? And you kind of realize is when you do something this big together, you don't need the long prayers. You don't need the shouting. You don't need any long performances. It was just done magnificently. I thought it was great. And just having that many people, we're going to go over the articles in tomorrow's Provi in the news, Provi in the media, but yeah, it was awesome. There's some, I've been hearing some stuff from people in Korea too. I heard there's a member in Korea who works in a university, and they started to testify on campus about this petition, and they got 1,500 signatures in a day, 1,500 signatures in a single day, right? And the thing is, this is in Korea, which I think is even more difficult than doing it in the foreign countries, because a lot of people don't know Sunsteam. They don't know, there's no big, huge public opinion against Sunsteam, right? They'll have to actually look it up. But can you imagine that in Korea, at a university, someone working there, just gets the courage and the bravery just to testify and gets 1,500 signatures, which is ridiculous, right? I thought that was pretty incredible, right? So for us too, I think that is inspiring to hear that type of thing too. I also saw some other stuff on Instagram. I saw this hashtag JMS Japan Providence member. That's what the hashtag is, JMS Japan Providence member. And I saw this on the weekend. It's awesome. I don't know what Japan is awesome. Japan is doing some amazing stuff. Japan, it's Japanese members on Instagram testifying, and it's all written in Korean, telling their story of how Providence has changed their life. I was super inspired by it. I was like, what? What is going on? Japan is on another level. 650, I bet you there's more than 650 also, but 650 people joining that protest, a peaceful protest. They had a good buddy of mine was the one that was actually preaching. Remember when the 3 male face stars went up? I was so happy to see Pastor Gabe out there. And then, we had the Taiwanese and the Japanese leaders out there just testifying. One plays basketball, the other plays volleyball. Just oh, this is so great. It was awesome. It was awesome. Another level. Japan, kudos to you guys for just taking things to another level. And I was just so happy. So for you guys too, I hope that we can understand that there is a wave we need to ride. This wave has already started. We got to pray even more. We got to pray with fire. We got to pray knowing that this amazing thing has already started. We have called out to God, and now it's time for God to work. We just got to keep praying more and more until the end of this year. Also, part of our prayers, we have that, there's a trial. There's the 6 executives, the 6 females, including KJS and Kyla. And I know this is kind of a hard trial to pray for, but the one thing we all need to be reminded of is that this trial is 6 female executives. It's not just KJS and Kyla, right? Because, those 2 are the ones that were oh, they're the key figures there. They're against us and stuff like this. And it kind of makes it harder to pray for the trial. But we got to realize that there are 4 other female executives there that are still on our side. Right? We need to pray to do them justice by praying for that trial, right? It's not worth it to have the other 4 who are innocent, right? The 4 that are with us go to prison for the sake of the other 2. We got to pray for the whole thing, right? If anything else, I care more about those 4 people. Those 4 people, I hope that there's not going to be a lot of suffering. I hope they don't get martyred for this history and stuff like that too. But let's be mindful of our prayers for that big trial for KJS, Kyla, but for the 4 other executives there, because that's just as important, I feel. It's really, really important that they don't suffer for those things, right? And yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and Sunsteam talked about in the Sunday message of people still going out talking to people. And the funny thing is, I got some, the crazy part was, I got 2 text messages or 2 messages from members this week about people reaching out to them still, right? So I just heard last week that some people are using different tactics for trying to pull people out still right now, trying to make people think that, Providence is wrong. You need to leave Providence, stuff like that too. So I'm going to bring up one more thing for you guys, because if you ever hear this, you'll understand how you can counteract what these guys are trying to say, right? When people try to use these tactics on you, okay? So there was someone who called, right? There was a person who went to call another ex-member, that they're doing fine. And basically what they said to this person is that because of Providence, while they're in Providence, they got anxiety, right? Being in Providence, they got anxiety from it, even like built up a blood clot or whatever it is. And then after leaving Providence, they stopped having anxiety. Okay. So that could sound really bad. Like, oh my gosh, this is that person's personal experience. Oh no. Like, what would you say to that type of thing? Right. So the big thing to look at is, what is the purpose of the conversation? And they're trying to correlate that being in poverty causes anxiety, right? Because, to him or to her, whoever this person was, it is like, hey, I was here and I had anxiety to this point, and when I left, I don't have any anxiety anymore, right? And there's a couple things you need to break down in if someone ever brings up this type of stuff, like mental health, medical conditions, stuff like that too, right? So 2 things to break down in this conversation. Number 1 is this. The one thing that I am happy about is they are no longer talking about the trial. They're no longer talking about the Netflix audio or any evidence of this trial, because they can't anymore. Now it's about more personal things like, oh, I have anxiety, which means it is no longer about Sunseam. It's no longer about, like, oh, Sunseam did this, Sunseam did that. Oh, this is why you need to get out. Now you can see that they've kind of pushed and turned away, that they're going towards their mental health, which is something that is kind of a good sign that all this evidence is coming out. They can't say anything about that, right? The second thing we have to understand is this. To correlate anxiety and Providence together, that's something that we have to think about a little bit more deeper. Number 1 is this person like a mental health professional, right? Did they go and they went to a mental health specialist and they're like, yeah, this is the reason for it, okay? But I'll tell you right now, that when you look at it reasonably and rationally, right, is Providence the cause of this? And it's very possible on an individual level. It is possible, right? But is it something that is like for everyone in general? Because you have to look at it from your perspective too, right? So if someone says to you from a personal perspective of, hey, Providence gives anxiety, this, and this, but from your perspective is, well, I'm in Providence too, and I don't have anxiety, right? Maybe that's just you. And if this is really true that Providence gives anxiety, then a large number of people, more people would be getting anxiety if Providence is indeed the thing that gives anxiety to a lot of, like to people, right? So mental health, like the thing you have to understand about anxiety, people have to study about these things. Mental health is more of a personal issue, right? And there are people who are more susceptible to anxiety and mental health issues, right? And sometimes it's not even environment. Some people have the character that is more susceptible to anxiety. And that's true. Psychologists have said that, yeah, there are certain types of character traits that lead to depression and anxiety and these things, right? For instance, those who do the MBTI, those with ENFJ and ESFJ have a higher probability, or they have the character traits to have anxiety or depression, these types of things, right? And another thing that if you study about like anxiety issues also stem from emotional and physical abuse, particularly in childhood, and can be triggered from high stress environments, right? High stress environments does not mean Providence. High stress environments can mean any type of environment or corporation or organization that is high stress, right? For instance, let me give you an example. High stress jobs are like sales. It's high stress. If you are someone susceptible to anxiety or depression or these types of mental health types, right? If you're susceptible to it, you just got to get yourself out of high stress situations. So don't go to sales. Don't go to corporate. Don't be a firefighter. Don't be a police. Don't be a lawyer, a teacher, a nurse, a doctor, even a hairdresser, they said, right? They're supposed to be like the top 25 most stressful jobs and such too, right? Yeah, you want to, if you know yourself very well, you want to take yourself out of high stress situations. Now, if you are in a high stress situation, the only way you can get over it is if you strengthen your mind and you don't let those things bother you, right? So with mental health issues, if you guys have it, I would definitely put yourself out of high stress positions. So in Providence, what would I stay away from? I would stay away from leadership. Because leadership is high stress in any organization. It's not an easy position, but it's high stress. Any pastor, any HQ, IMD, right? Department leaders, it is high stress. A lot of people are relying on you, and your decisions make a big difference. It is high stress position, right? But it's not Providence. It's just all high stress. But to use anxiety as the reason why Providence is bad is unfair, and there's way too much to unpack. Right? To even state that this is the reason you should leave Providence, or, to leave Providence is something that we have to think more rationally and reasonable about. Like, for me, that is something that's like, well, is this just your personal opinion, or like, do you have any more people? Are there a lot of people like this in Providence, right? And if someone said to me, hey, have you ever had anxiety or stress in Providence? I'd be like, yeah, I've had it in some situations, but not to the point it's debilitating, and not to the point I'm sitting there like, oh, Providence is bad, right? Why? Because it's like this. There's a difference between, what was it? It was, someone was explaining the difference between two words. Oh, sadness and depression. Those are two different things, and you need to know the difference. Depression is like you have chemical imbalance, and, you're constantly in that state all the time, right? But when it is sadness is because of a situation or circumstance, which is okay. If you go to a funeral, of course you're sad. If something bad happens at your work, of course you're sad. Knowing whether you're sad or depressed are two different things, but it's good to be sad in a sad situation. It's weird if you go to a funeral and you start laughing the entire time. It makes no sense, right? And in the same way too, yeah, there are some situations I'm nervous in Providence. There's some situations I'm anxious in Providence. There's certain situations like this, right? Even in the middle of the pandemic, I had an anxiety attack. And the anxiety attack, for me, I'll realize reasonably and rationally, like, hey, we're in the pandemic. I've been in lockdown. I've been isolated. Of course I'm going to feel these things a little bit more. It's not because of Providence, right? So this is why whenever you hear these like things that are kind of like, they're going to just try to put two and two together, but it's very, very difficult just to say that, oh, Provi is like this. And the answer is, no, but I would say, I don't think Providence is the reason why we had far more people who would have these anxiety disorders or whatever it is, right? However, just like any organization, any corporation, any NGO, you're going to have high stress situations, right? Or high stress positions like leadership, high stress situations like what happened in March. It's not something that happens all the time. If this happened every single month, then I'd be like, okay, this is really unhealthy. This is super unhealthy, right? Look at Christianity. How high stress was it in the early Christian church when they were being hunted to be killed, thrown into the Colosseum, eaten by lions alive? Is that not high stress? Of course it is, right? So that's why when you hear these types of things, you kind of have to break things down like, hey, look, I understand this situation, and I understand that, you may have gone through this. We have to understand where anxiety comes from, how it could be something from childhood, whether it's physical, emotional abuse, how it could be something from high stress situations, which means these people have to take themselves out of high stress situations, or, people, we just have to realize some people have the character traits that are more susceptible to anxiety and mental health disorders. And the more we know about ourselves, the better it is for ourselves to move forward also. And that's why for me, one of the big things is whatever you hear, guys, don't just sit there and be like, oh my gosh, that's so true. I've been anxious too in Providence. And the answer is everyone has. If anyone has not been at least a little bit anxious from this year in March, then you probably have no emotion, right? It's a situational thing. Like I said, there's a difference between sadness and depression. One is a real mental disorder, and the other one, sometimes we're just going to go through this regularly, is something that's because of a situation or circumstance. And I hope that's something that we all recognize and realize and understand about ourselves too. Just because someone else went through it, look at your own life. Did you go through like real anxiety attacks? You're debilitated. You can't do anything? Or have you been through and you're like, oh, this sucks. Ugh! And then life goes on. And then another good thing happens. And then a bad thing happens. And then a good thing. Like, it's just like normal life, right? You got to look at yourself too. Yeah, I've had certain things happen, but I understand, hey, that was during pandemic. Hey, I was so stressed when I was a head leader, and that's a high stress position. And I thought, in the end of it, I'm like, it doesn't really fit me that well, right? I went through it. I'm okay now, right? It's not like I'm sitting there saying that, oh, it's because of province. No, for me, I think about other things like, how can we do better with organization? How can we do better with our system? How can we do better with this or that, right? So I hope that that kind of helps people out if someone ever comes to you with like that in mind also, right? So I also had another conversation with a good friend of mine too. And this person was talking to me about like evangelism. This is a year of evangelism still, right? And as we were talking about evangelism, the one thing I want to remind everyone, just as I reminded my friend, is don't focus on the evangelism, like don't focus on the passing of people. That is not the focus. Why? Because passing people or someone realizing is completely out of your hands. You can't do that. That's between them and God, right? Yes, it's good to have a purpose. It's good to have a goal to evangelize. But some things are completely out of our hands. Like if evangelism was more like stuffing envelopes, right? Some people have jobs where you stuff envelopes, right? Stuffing envelopes is like there's an end goal. If you stuff one envelope, you've done it. You're done. So if your goal is, I'm going to stuff 100 envelopes by the end of the day, that is absolutely possible because it's something that's more mechanical. It's something that has an actual ending, right? You just do this and it's done. But we have to realize and recognize evangelism is not something that just happens because you put a lot of effort and hard work into it. It doesn't work like that. Evangelism is dependent upon that person. And even if God has chosen that person still has the free will whether to choose God or not, right? They have the free will to. It's just the same as this week's Sunday message of people who used to believe and be loyal to God and testified, and then all of a sudden they turned around and they no longer believed and they slandered and they ran interference and went against the man and mission, stuff like that too. Why? There's free will. And that's why I want to remind everyone when it comes to evangelism with these like 77 days left, make sure you know the focus is not the passing of people. Though that's something that you can measure, but it's not something we control, right? What we need to do is make sure that we are the ones that can take care of the things that you're able to control. Like when you take care of someone, you can't control whether they do better or not. That's up to them, right? However, I can do my best to talk to them. I could do my best to, like, let's just say that set a condition with them or, call them every other day, something along that line. When it comes to evangelism, the only things I can control is I can meet 10 people a day. I can control that. What I can control is spending an hour a day getting people to sign the petition. I can control that. Like sitting in on a Bible study for someone else once per week, twice per week. I can control that, right? The one thing we have to separate is there is always a condition that is set when we set these types of conditions, right? Like the best example I give to you guys is this. Remember I told you about I think last week or the week before I testified about how we, in England, in the UK, I was there as a pioneer and we just like evangelized tons of people. In a year and a half, we had like over 20 people that passed in that church. Over 20 people, guys, right? And, here I am, like these people have been struggling for 7 years trying to get just one person. I come in out of nowhere. In 3 months, I get the first person. Then in a year and a half, there's 22, 23 people, right? And then it's very easy for people to sit there and feel bad. Feel bad like, oh, I'm terrible because I've been here for 7 years and I haven't evangelized a single person. But here's this person that comes in for 3 months and evangelizes one. And then over a year and a half, they evangelize over 20 people. It's very easy to think that way, but no. everything has to do with what I did. And the reason I know this is because 7 years before we became a church in London, Sunsteam in 1999 was evangelizing in London and Oxford and just going around meeting people, spending all this time, 2 weeks, every day, going out hours and hours and hours. And by the end of it, he couldn't evangelize not even a single person came to like the parties they held or the, to do Bible study. None of that. Zero came. And sometimes he felt so bad. He felt so bad in front of God. He's like, God, I'm so sorry. I worked so hard for 2 weeks. I spent this money so that people would come, but not a single person came. And he felt so sad in front of God. And when he was leaving to go to Milan, Italy, this is when he saw the sign, and God showed him a sign of a rainbow. And that sign of the rainbow was a promise. And the promise that God gave to Sunsteam was, people will be there in London. There will be a church in London. And that's why exactly 7 years later, our church became Promise Church, because we fulfilled the promise, right? Now, here's the thing. What was the sign that Sunsteam wrote when he left England? It was, sow with tears, reap with joy. And there was a message that Sunsteam gave. And in that message, Sunsteam says, there are people that sow the seeds of tears, right? They're going to go out, set conditions. They're going to meet 1,000 people, 10,000 people, and they will sow it in tears because not a single person will come. But that sets the condition for the future where someone who has done nothing of those conditions will come and just reap with joy. And it's not because that's not because I was awesome. It was only because the seeds of tears were sown already beforehand, which means, guys, when you guys go out to do evangelism, don't think only about the end point, because sometimes our mission is to set the condition. Sometimes our mission is to set it so that someone later can reap with joy, right? And that's why, if people don't come, yes, it's a sad thing. If people leave, yes, it's a sad thing, but people have their own autonomy, right? They have their own, they're able to make their own decisions. And we believe in this free will. So the thing that I'm just reminding everyone is, don't make it that how many people did you pass. It's great if you pass someone. It is great. It's amazing. You're saving lives. But it's hard. Sow with tears, reap with joy. Some of us are there to sow with tears. Some of us will be there to reap with joy, but we're all part of the evangelism. We're all part of it, right? So my reminder to you guys is, don't just go out there thinking that you're going to I'm going to evangelize 3 people, 10 people, whatever it is. Pray about it, meet people. But guess what, guys? Didn't God want Jesus to live and not go to the cross? Didn't God want Jesus to spread the gospel across the world? But did it happen the way even God wanted? No. Why? Because of human responsibility, because of the free will of human beings. It didn't happen that way, and Jesus went to the cross. So you can even see that from God's perspective too, it didn't happen the right way because of free will, because of love. Without love, there is no free will, right? Because love is the person's own choice to take this person as their own, that they choose this person over anyone else in the world, kind of thing, right? So that was kind of one of the reminders I wanted to give to everyone here, all right? So that's kind of what I want to talk about during this first segment. I hope you guys really enjoy these segments. Guys, I would love to hear in the comments if you went to the prayer meeting in Korea. I would love to hear your perspective. If you have an audio, please send your audios. Would love to hear your testimony of what it was like there. Just send your audios to me. I'm playing those because I can't imagine what it would have been. Just the pictures, the video itself was incredible. It was epic. All right. So that's something that I definitely send your audios, guys. Would love to hear it. Today, we also have the Sunday Message Word Study, Hungry Message. We'll go over that. And then, of course, we have 2G Talks with Eddie Kweon at the very end, too. All right? So let's move into the first break of the day.
Through all the wind and the trials, still we never did break. It really wasn't very easy to put trust in that state. So even though our castles in the sand tumbled down, but all our tears streamed down together to cement the foundation. The tears rolled out continuously every single day, and I wouldn't hold it back because I got through so much pain. Now I stand and shake the dust off as I cling onto your Lord who's right before me. Oh Lord, you'll always be the only answer.
I don't sit here wishing happiness will come round. I don't sit and wait for it to walk through my door. Happiness comes to those who take action on love. When I love with perfect faith,
Yeah, perfect faith.
happiness will fill my heart.
When I am faced with the roadblock, I think, what would you do? Even so, with all that thinking, I fall further in distress and agony. When I leave those thoughts behind, it's a better life. I leave my suffering and failures far behind me. You saw me struggle to chase a brighter future. While running after happiness, I turn to you, our eyes connecting. As you switch, you flash a smile, and this is what you tell me. Let's create our own happiness, though times it may be difficult.
I don't sit here wishing happiness will come round. I don't sit and wait for it to walk through my door. Happiness comes to those who take action on love. When I love with perfect faith,
Yeah, perfect faith.
happiness will fill my heart. I'm not afraid, Lord, you have always been the answer for me. I'm not afraid, I'll hold your hand in mine.
Those days were once so painful and distressing. The massive waves that tore me down were scary and depressing. But though confusion, chaos, fear devoured me completely, the moment that I found you, I was spared out of the deep sea. Now all those moments in my life, no matter how I struggled, are precious and important cause they led me to our meeting. So now I'll never leave you, know my faith and love will not grow cold. And just as you have done for me, I will believe, I will love you more.
As long as I live, I pray only to look to your will. I'll offer prayers full of joy and happiness. I'll stand upon Christ as my rock. As long as I live, I pray only to look to your will. I'll offer prayers full of joy and happiness. I'll stand upon Christ as my rock. Love's always patient and kind. Love is always full of trust. Love is always full of hope. And love always perseveres. Love's always patient and kind. Love is always full of trust. Love is always full of hope. And through love we'll persevere here together.
All right, so let's get into today's word study. And every Monday we have the Sunday message word study. And like I said, this week's message, hungry message. A lot of the parts were just kind of like, whoa. Like, remember when he's talking about the spiritual world stuff? I was just like, what? And that was just the earthly spiritual world. That's the crazy part. The crazy part is he hasn't even touched the abyss, and he hasn't even touched hell, right? And you're listening to it like, what the heck, right? He's like, yeah, this is just the earthly spiritual world. So, we're going to see, we'll talk about the abyss and hell at another time. I'm just like, what? That's so crazy. Like, even what he said, what he was talking about sounded like hell. It really did. I was just like, whoa. Yeah, it was intense. Right? This week's Sunday message title is "The Work That the Holy Spirit Should Do and the Work That I Should Do." The word that the Trinity and the Lord, the work that the Holy Trinity and the Lord should do, and the work that we should do, or I should do. Right? So yeah, it was very, very great, intense message. It had like 3 big key points. The first one is like God's work must absolutely be done. Then the second was about splitting or discerning. And last was according to what the body has done, the spirit and soul received accordingly in the spiritual world, which was the scarier parts. Like what Sun Seems on the spiritual world too, I was just like, yikes. You kind of like at some point you're a little bit trembling, like, because he's talking about specific people too, that he's like meeting the people that have left, someone who is who went out to the world or fell to the opposite sex or whatever it was. He's going in. I'm just like, what? Like he sees them, and they even recognize him sometimes too. So, well, the first point I thought was a very, very great point, right? The first point is, regardless of what we do, when we do work, and especially when we do big or great things, we're going to go through problems, right? We're going to go through problems. But if you've actually gained something great, if you've gained a great thing, you're able to resolve those problems too. Right, so I was just like, ooh, this is a great, I like this point here because it's talking about, the difficulties we're going through right now. What are we going through at this moment, right? And if you think about who's got the greatest work, it's God. So it's what the message is saying, that even God, his great and amazing work, problems are going to rise. Problems are going to happen even with God's work. Right? And why is God's work the greatest work? Because it's about saving lives eternally. People no longer going to hell. People, like going to the spiritual world, things that we were looking at through the that we saw through that we heard through the third part of the message, right? Problems are going to happen. This is going to be part of life itself. And a lot of these problems happen because of ignorant people, right? We kind of talked about that in the first section too, even with evangelism, there's going to be people who are ignorant, people who don't want to accept God. There's going to be people who come and try to interfere and try to get these people out even before they finish listening to the word, right? But even though there's these problems, we've got to think about it. Even in the past, all the central figures still did their work. How many people went against Noah? How many people ridiculed him? How many people didn't even try to help him? Probably his own children were against him too. But he still did the work. Moses still did the work, even though people are like, stop bothering the Pharaoh. He's making our life even harder because of you. And they were against Moses at the Red Sea, against Moses, in the desert of Zin, against Moses. Even his brother and sister were against him. But even if these problems come, the work still has to be done, and it still remains true today. Jesus, look at all the problems he went through. But he had to get the work done. What was the will that need? What was God's work at that time? Salvation. It was bigger than his own death, to save everyone. God has a plan. God has a design. But it has to be done at the right time. And if it's not done, what's going to happen? What if Jesus did it later? It's not going to work because there's a timing for everything. Just like, when you think about timing for saving lives, isn't it amazing some of the people that we've met in Providence, and they talk about, I was struggling at that time. I was going through something at that time. That was the time that I need to search for God. It's the perfect timing. If we're not going to do the work just because, God, I don't want to do this because there's so many problems, lives are going to be lost. And this is why we got to still do the work of God, even if the problems occur, even if the problems are this bad right now. And one thing that I thought was quite fun, it was kind of funny in a sense that you might not do the work because you're trying to avoid the problems, right? But sometimes it seems like straight up, God's like, hey, even when the work isn't done, problems are still going to occur. Even if it isn't done, there's still going to be problems. We have to be those where the evil one, right? Where Satans, evildoers do not find fault in us and bring harm, right? And that's why we need to do the work. We can't be the hypocrites. We can't be the ones that, are living kind of half our foot in Providence, half in the world. We have to fulfill, this is the work that God has given to us. This is why we're the brides of this time. And the thing that makes this all okay is that we've already received salvation. We've already received it. As long as we hold on until the end, we have no issues or problems. And that's why we have to go and save those who really, really are in harm's way. And the bigger the work is, the bigger the history is, the more suffering and the more tribulation and the more death that comes. Look at the early Christian church. How many people were martyred? How many people went through great suffering? But because of these people who spread the gospel throughout great suffering, the gospel came to you and me. During the process, we were brought into this history. The bigger it is, the more problems occur. Like if you want to look at like a worldly example, look at how many people, like the government and these like news outlets against Elon Musk. The bigger you get, the more problems that happen. That's what happens. If we don't do the work, then we can't carry out God's will. We have to walk the path of history. And I like how Sunseam said, hey, even if all the village dogs come out and bark at us, you got to do the work. However, I like the second point is dogs bark whenever they see people. But, you know, if a dog starts barking at you, like, you know, they're in their house barking at you, what do? You don't sit there, run and start hitting the dog. You just kind of walk by and you look at it and that's it. And you just kind of move on. And that's what has to be even right now. Why? Because if you stop, like one time Sunseam said this, when it came to the time of the rapture, Sunseam said something very similar, right? If you're on the train of the rapture, if you're on that train, right, you just got a couple stops to go, and then all of a sudden outside the train, there's a dog barking at you, don't go outside the train. Don't get off the train and start like rebuking the dog. Just let the dog bark and just move on. You're already in that train, right? Because once the time passes and once that train starts moving again, you can't get back on that train. And that's why we have to do the work that God has given us, even if there's tribulation, even if there's hardships, even if there's difficulties, we got to carry out this history, or else these people cannot be saved. And here's the thing, remember, like hardships and difficulties, put it this way, are Providence people the only ones in the world that go through hardships and difficulties? And the answer is absolutely not. Everyone in the world goes through hardships and difficulties, no matter what. If you try to do anything big, make big money, make a big company, make big products, whatever it is, you're going to go through difficulties and suffering. Like go watch Shark Tank and you see how difficult it really is, right? But, isn't it far better to do something great, go through tribulation and suffering, but you take the action for history to be made? Isn't it far better to go through that than going through tribulation and suffering for nothing? It becomes meaningless and empty. What was the example that was given in the message? It was farming, right? So farming too is the same thing. You go through suffering, right? However, if you go through all that suffering and you finally harvest your crops, you can resolve your problems through the harvesting of crops. But if you don't harvest, the winter comes, you're tormented. You have no food, you're suffering, you're starving. It's so much better to do the work you need to do and you know, go through all that suffering stuff, but get the work done. You know, it's kind of like where's that verse in Romans? Romans chapter 8, verse 29? Is it Romans chapter, where it says, one second, let me find this, if this is actually the right verse. Romans chapter, I can't find, yeah. It's Romans chapter 8:18. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. That was in the message, right? He didn't say the verse, but it's like, yeah, you got to think about the future glory. This present suffering is nothing. Don't worry about this present suffering. Like, do you actually think God would waste all this time, right? Go through all this suffering and not fulfill his will? The one thing that was so incredibly satisfying from this message, and I hope that this kind of, I'm not sure if you guys heard it the same way or heard the same thing I did, but this one stuck out to me, was we are going through suffering and tribulation after completing the work. That is satisfying. It means we've completed the work. The big bulk of the work, the main thing is done. The rapture is done. Making Wolmyeongdong is all this. It's all about management right now, but it's done. We're going through the suffering tribulation that happens after completing the work, which is so different. I was like, wow, that is so great. It would be worse if it's like, we're not quite there yet. We haven't completed it. I'm like, oh, but he's like, no, we're done. We've completed the work. We've completed the work. And this is the suffering tribulation that happens after completing the work. Right? We have to know this clearly. If we didn't get, we've gained so much from church buildings. We've gained Wolmyeongdong. We've gained lives. We've gained like 70 plus countries, whatever it is. We've gained so much. We've fulfilled the rapture, the purpose of creation. All those things are done. We've completed the work, and now it's just managing just as hard as we were building it, right? So Sasim said last week, now that it's completed, you have to manage it just as hard as you were making yourself. You have to think about it like, we have to think about it's like we're trying to save our own life. How sad it would be if you went through all this and then you just left. You left God's will. Your spirit goes to death. One of the biggest problems, as you said in the message, is it's those who reject and deny during tribulation are the problem. It's during the tribulation. It tests who we are. It tests our faith. It tests our motives. It tests our hearts, the tribulation. Look at this is the same message. This part is like last week's message when we talked about building Wolmyeongdong. How discouraging it was at times. But we still took action. We gained. We achieved what needed to be done. Right? If we stopped in the middle, we wouldn't have Wolmyeongdong. If we stopped in the middle, we wouldn't have the temple of God. We wouldn't have God's throne. We wouldn't be able to become the counterparts of love. Where would the rapture have happened? And that's why for us, fulfilling God's purpose of creation is the eternal joy. And yes, we suffered losses. But lives were saved from death. So ultimately, in the end, all these lives saved from death. How happy should we be? It's bigger than the loss of your job. It's bigger than the loss of your house. It's bigger even the loss, all these things. If you are in this history completed, you have the rapture. And even if you lose your life, you're raptured. We have not lost. And then, these are the words that a lot of us want to hear is, guess what? God's going to make up for all the losses by blessing you once again. He's going to make up for all the losses. You're going to be blessed. And that's why it's so much better to go through the suffering after you do the work than suffering without doing any work, right? Man, when Susie talked about 2023, right? This is the year about taking action until the end of 2023. I'm not sure why people would make it to the end. At least wait until the end. So we know that if God is saying make it until the end, which means it's going to be that hard. It's just like Jesus in Matthew 24 is saying that only those only those that stay until the end will be saved, right? It means that it's going to be hard. There's tribulation, there's suffering, and we're all experiencing it right now. This is the year. If anything, this is the crazy part. I love this. Like 2023, this is the year to get out of suffering by going through suffering. As crazy as that sounds, this is a year to get out of suffering. Guys, we should be happy. Yes, God, we've got 76, 77 days left. Bring it on, right? Well, I don't want to bring it on, but hey, we got time to this is a year to get out of suffering. It's a year to gain freedom. It's the year to overcome difficult tribulation. It's the year to get out. We got to make it till the end. Got to make it till the end. Look what Sunsim did just to get to this point. Sunsim talked about this the whole time. Like Sunsim talked about when he was young, how many times he read the Bible, he prayed for over 20 years just to understand the word while asking the Holy Trinity. But during that time, extreme suffering, extreme cold, heat, hunger. There's only water to drink. He had to like suck on the roots of like bark off of trees. But even through that, he learned the word. He continuously was up on the mountains. And then he lived his life only to save lives. The pain and the suffering he went through would all disappear after taking action. But if he stopped at any point, would he have received the words of the time period? Would he have been able to save these 100,000 lives? There's no hope if it didn't happen like this. Even if you cannot sleep well, eat well, you have to absolutely do the mission you've received. That's powerful. That's like Sunsim's mentality. Yeah, we may suffer for a short time, but it's for the sake of the Lord. We got to walk that path. Because only at the end of that path is the door to glory that we celebrate together. Right? So I hope that all of us too will realize this even more deeply, right? About this suffering we're going through. I love it. It's after we completed. I love that one statement. It's after we completed. This is what we're going through right now. Oh, and then, we have like, we're slowly going to get into these like spiritual world things that Sunsim saw through prayer, right? And it's very, very interesting because the lead up to it, we talk about revelations that the Holy Trinity give to us and such. But it's interesting when Sunsim start talking about everyone's path, the path of life. The destination is different for each person, which doesn't mean that, not just saying the path of life and the path of death, but even in the path of life, every one of us, me and all of you guys listening, we all have a different path different destination we're supposed to take. It's our personal destination. It's that personal path. Yeah, even here, us in Providence, we all have a different destiny. Yeah, we are all going to the Golden City. We're all going to the Golden Heaven. But even if in the same place, right, going to a same similar area, it's different. Thoughts, our hearts are different. Our actions are different. Our paths are divided. They're all different. We all have our own path. And that's why it's hard for anyone to say you should do this or you should do that. Why? Everyone has their destination. We're all on the way. We're walking on that yellow brick road towards the golden heaven. But we have to make it to the end. Right? It was really sad when the message was talking about people who are only enjoying the physical things in this world. It's really sad when you think about it. Because once the body dies, all the joy in the physical world disappears. What's even more scarier is, what the thing Sunsim said is, not even one thing in the physical world will be remembered. Not even one thing. So live life seeking eternal things. Or we end up failing to get to our destination. Everything we enjoyed in this physical world is going to disappear. And later we'll realize the meaninglessness of it. And then, of course, we've heard this message a lot is, who are those that fail to achieve salvation properly? It's those that break the peace. Ugh. It could be in your family. Don't break the peace in your family. Don't break the peace in your departments. Don't break the peace in the churches or leadership. Don't break that peace. So I hope that all of us here, it's like that great example Sunsim gave is like, hey, we need to calculate the cost before we start our life, right? Before you even get to the end, because at the end it's already too late. Calculate, count the cost. What's it going to cost me to get to the better place? So we have to be those that don't turn our eyes too much towards the physical things, the empty and sadness, right? We have to be those that are looking towards the spiritual. Become perfect counterparts of love. And not focus too much on those physical things. Because the moment you start focusing on those things, we stop our transformation in our soul and our spirit. So I hope that's something that all of us can kind of take a look at ourselves, reflect on ourselves, is have we started to focus too much on the physical things, like the money, the materials, the houses, the cars, whatever it is. So, yeah. And, of course, there's a big part of the message like, hey, you got to pray. You really, really got to pray, because problems occur when we didn't do what we're supposed to do. And the reason why prayer is so big is through prayer, we become more spiritual. When we're spiritual, we're able to receive the revelations, the inspirations of the Holy Spirit that are so slight and so small, but we'll be able to discern them well. We'll be able to act upon them better if we pray. But if we don't receive, we don't know what to do, and we are basically paying the price for not doing our daily life of faith. Problems occur in life mainly because we don't do what we're supposed to do. We stop during tribulation. So pray. Pray at the pre-dawn. Pray for lives. Pray for yourself. Pray for your brothers and sisters, your nation, the world. If these things happen, this is when we become even more successful. Oh, the next point that I thought was very, very big was about discernment, right? About carefully assessing what you do. Before you do anything, assess, right? Look and see if what you do is going to cause other problems. And even if it causes problems, you got to discern whether it's worth it or not. Is it possible to cut these things out or not? We can't just think about only positive things. And this is where we see a lot of times there's problems with, sometimes people make a lot of mistakes because they're only positive, not thinking about the negative things, right? Whenever we do anything, negative things are sure to follow. So either cut it out or don't do it at all, right? Whenever we take action, both good and bad is going to come. It's going to happen, right? So what we need to do is we need to empty ourselves, because even if God, the Holy Spirit, if Jesus, His Son are trying to influence us and tell us, hey, we're trying to help you right now. If you keep your own heart, you don't empty yourself, and you don't open your heart to what God wants, the place God wants you to lead you to, right? Then we end up taking action on our own thoughts instead of God's. We have to do things. This has been like the message for like the past month. Do according to the thoughts of the Holy Spirit. Because what is Satan waiting for? Satan's waiting for you to start thinking about that one thing you desire too much. And this is why we have to be aware, reflect on ourselves. So we need to discern every situation. Are we going to lose more than we gain, or are we going to gain more than we lose? Is it worth what we lose? So we have to discern really, really well, right? Splitting, right? Don't think about your own thoughts, right? Don't, good and bad are together, just like the weeds and the grain. They look the same. They're bundled together in the beginning. You let them grow for a little bit, and then you're able to take out what is bad. You have to discern. Sometimes it takes time. There's traps laid by Satan. We just can't see it in the beginning. Yeah, a lot of these, it's very interesting about this discernment thing, because it's not an easy thing for us to do. And that's why we need to pray. And that's why we need to have that spiritual power, know the words really well, so we can discern between what is right and what is wrong. We need to recognize the difference between the good and the bad, the righteous and the unrighteous. And we have to be taking action. And while we're taking action, we have to split between good and evil. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, Satan will try to trap us in many different ways. Like, just on my YouTube channel, my Espresso with Sky YouTube channel, some guy just wrote he wrote something like, if you don't know the Bible, then shut up. Now, imagine if someone said that to you, you could get into a fight, and that's Satan's trap against us. But instead, it's like, I would just write, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it. That's it. Why? There's no need. There's no need to fight with those, fight in that situation. There's no need. You kind of look, you discern it, not worth it. Totally not worth it. Separate the work you should do and separate the work others should do, right? The good and evil, they're mixed together. And if we don't split it, we're going to end up like Abraham, right? Satan gets involved. And because he didn't split, there's like 400 years of slavery for his ancestors, which is crazy. In the end, yes, Cain and Abel will walk together until 6, but at 7, Abel and Cain separate. They separate. Satan and God, you can't tell, like, whoa, what's going on? I can't discern. Wait till at 6, until 6, it's going to be there, step by step. And then at 7, there's going to be a separation. Split first, right? It's about, understanding the difference between good and evil. Yeah, a lot of great proverbs that were given out. I didn't even know the numbers of them, but they're just proverbs that were just being spit out. I don't know what the numbers were. But if we don't split, if we don't split, problems don't get solved. So we have to be those that split, that discern really well. And God, that's one big thing that God does. I found one of these proverbs to be quite interesting is look at a person and split what belongs to you and others. Take only what belongs to you. Even when it comes to people, that was quite interesting too. Sometimes God sends people to you for a specific reason, but then you take them for other reasons, and this is why we go down a bad hill. Like, think about this. I think one of the examples that came to me was look at King Necho. Pharaoh, he's coming from, a place that is idol worshiping. It doesn't mean, like King Pharaoh comes to help you, now you're best friends. No, he comes to help you with the specific thing God wanted to help you with. Take the good and leave the bad out. It doesn't mean you go start living in their country, taking their idols and stuff like that too. Take only what belongs to you, only what God gives to you. So, I hope that all of us will really understand what this means too about splitting in our lives, dividing. And then, of course, at the very end, oh my goodness, all the stories about the spiritual world. People who don't, this is an earthly spiritual world too, guys. People who don't believe in God, people who make idols, people who worship idols, people who worship people who went against the man of mission, interfering with the people that love God. Oh, it was brutal. Brutal stuff. I don't even want to talk about something. Like, you just heard about like that hell that has like the lake of fire and people screaming so loud. The screams are like, it's like heard all throughout that evil spiritual world. Or that place that has like foul, like excrement smelling like water that you have to drink. Like, you want to throw up thinking about that stuff. And but the not surprising, but the sad part is it's about people who abandon God. It's about people who slandered the person God sent. It's about people that went against their brothers and sisters, the people that follow the man of mission. It's about those who fell sexually. It's about those who had the dirty sins in the world. It's about those committing filthy deeds and torment the righteous. That's what that's the sad part. All these, I'm not going to go over every single situation, but it's all about these people that that are like that. People who distrusted God. People who treated Jesus unfairly, treated him like an animal. People who have not realized. People who failed to realize the value of how God has been working. What about that place where this female spirit was just left to be alone in loneliness? Yeah. They were in a hell of loneliness. Now, I went through the pandemic. Loneliness is tough. To not have someone. Loneliness and solitude forever and ever. Man. And you can't even kill yourself. You're just going to go through that pain. And basically what it's like this week, one of the titles of the message, you get according to what you've done from the scriptures, right? You'll get according to what you've done. It depends on what you've done in your body. Right? And this is why we're hearing those stories. People, like there's some people who are in these bad areas, people trying to whisper and trick people, slandering them, talking to them behind the scenes. Like, just like the person I was just telling you about in the first segment, like, oh yeah, I went through anxiety. Like, that's terrible. Trying to trick people when they themselves probably don't even believe it fully. What about those ghosts, right? Used to testify, used to teach the word. Now they're just by themselves, flying around aimlessly, just wandering. No purpose. And even when they saw Sunseam, can you imagine how they were so shocked they hid and ran away? But imagine how embarrassed and ashamed they are. Others were those that followed in the beginning, then later disbelieved, interfered with other righteous people, tormented followers, tormented the person God sent. And they did this until they died. Which one was kind of crazy was the one, that spirit that came to him and said that they love Sunseam. And Sunseam had to look at this person for a long time to finally realize he recognized who it was. Can you imagine that? Someone who used to be loyal, someone who testified for the gospel, but they fell with the opposite sex. They abandoned this history, and they also took others with them. Yeah, there's a bunch of people even right now trying to take lives as they leave. Yeah, they're like really like those hunters, people hunting other lives down. They can leave quietly by themselves, but instead of that, they'll try to take everyone else with them. There's what was the other one with like tons of rooms? The way he was explaining it was like a decrepit old folks home, because there's just these spirits that were super old, like vegetables, and they haven't showered for decades or washed their clothes. Like, oh, who wants to be in a place like that? And once again, it's spirits living in loneliness. And I think that's one of the worst things that we realize here on this earth too, is being alone. Ugh. Yeah, just hearing about these people, it's just, yeah, the types of people they are. Maybe, like, in my head, I'm like, maybe Sunseam knows that a lot of them are listening, and maybe this will scare them, or at least show them that, hey, are you sure you want to take this road? So it'll bring some people back or something. But for me, I'm terrified. I didn't even do it, and I'm terrified. Yeah, some of these people were enticing others, tempting others, confusing others with lies, leading them astray away from this history, taking the weak people out. And we could say to ourselves, like, oh, they were weak anyways. No, we're the ones supposed to take care of them. Not everyone is, it's almost like a baby. When you're a baby, what happens is you need someone to take care of you until you're old enough. Same with spiritual babies too. There were people that we should have taken, not that we should have, but we're supposed to take care of them until they can stand on their own. But then these people are calling them and taking them out, the ones that are weak. Don't look at the weak people as like, oh, that's their fault. We have to look at that and say, no, that's not the issue, right? Yeah, everyone starts off weak, and not everyone can stand on their own from the beginning. That's why it's even more sad that they take out the weak people, or the people that are still growing in this history, make them disbelieve. Yeah, they're going to pay the price for their sins, but that's not something I'm going to revel in and say, ha ha, look at you paying for your sins. No, it's such a sad thing. And this is why we need to teach people these things really well, so no one falls into temptation. So that even if tribulations arise, they will not turn away from this history and from the one that God has sent. Yeah, that's the earthly spiritual world, guys. I'm just like, what? We haven't even touched the abyss, which is far worse. And then, oh, it was a heavy message. Just heavy. Oh, I don't even know what to say. Like, can I talk about the 7 crowns? But, you know, I'm a guy. Those 7 crowns are not things that are so, they don't motivate me. Oh, I want blue sapphire. Oh, I want diamonds. Oh, no, I'd be more like, God's going to be like, I'll give you a tank. I was like, yeah! I'll give you a gun that shoots 10 million bullets a second. Yeah! I'll give you a sword where you can go into the spiritual realm and start wiping out Satans and demons in battles. I'd be like, yes, God, give me that. But I liked what the crowns were for overcoming tribulations. Guess what, guys? We're gonna get one of those crowns because if we overcome 2023, we're gonna get one of those. Absolutely loving God without changing. Make it to the end. Faithful until, like, basically, if you make it to the end, you basically have almost all these crowns and more. Except for some people might not get to the books with pens and records the word. I'm hoping, though, that God would... I don't have a pen, but I do have recordings of the Morning Star Drive, and I hope it's listened to in heaven. That he'll be like, yeah, I'll count that one, so I'll give you a crown for that one. Oh, powerful message. Powerful, powerful message. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Yeah, there's just so much. It's such a hungry message. All right? So if you have any other things you want to comment on, just post it down there. I would love to hear that too, guys. Amazing, amazing message, all right? So let's move into the second break of the day.
You showed me all of your heart, even before I gave mine. That's why I can't help myself. I'll always follow you. You showed me how to believe, so that my faith became strong. That's why I can't help myself. I'll always follow you. More than 1,000 words from anyone. Your word is all I need. Your word is what I will believe. More than 1,000 words from anyone. I'll put my faith in you. Your word is what I will believe. You showed me hope in this world, so I put my hope in you. That's why I can't help myself. I'll always follow you. You showed me unending love, came to me and loved me first. That's why I can't help myself. I will always love you more. More than 1,000 words from anyone. Your word is all I need. Your word is what I will believe. More than 1,000 words from anyone. I'll put my faith in you. Your word is what I will believe. is unwavering and true. It is firm and strong, a tree with deepest roots. My heart is unwavering and true. It is firm and strong, a tree with deepest roots. More than 1,000 words from anyone, your word is all I need. Your word is what I will believe. More than 1,000 words from anyone, I'll put my faith in you. Your word is what I will believe.
Okay, so let's get into the final segment for today. And of course, every Monday is 2G Talks with Eddie Kweon. Hope you guys are enjoying his segment too. I'm thankful for you guys that are putting in words of encouragement and helping him out too, and giving him comments and questions about his segments also. Today, he will be talking about the last 2 weeks and about the morning messages where Sunseem talks about how we need to get rid of the old things in order to receive new things. So hope you guys really enjoyed this, everyone. This is episode 101. This is Eddie Kweon with 2G Talks.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another week's episode of 2G Talks. Really, it's been, it feels, even though, I recorded a segment for this last week too, I just came home from all of the travels, starting from the soccer conference until now. And yeah, even though it's only been a few weeks, it really feels like a long time. And I think it's been a while since I've been on a trip like this. And so that's kind of partly what I want to share. And hopefully this is helpful to everyone at home too. One of the most amazing things yesterday was hearing the morning message from Sunseem, where he was really talking about how we need to get rid of the things that we need to get rid of, right? And it's not a novel message. Well, by nature of the recording, it's quite older too. But I think it was so moving because it was telling us to fix the things that we need to fix right now, right? Like in terms of both fixing it on Earth rather than trying to do it when in the afterlife, which isn't something that works. And also just in general, instead of putting it off into to the future, do it now. And I think this really resonated with me because, all of us have experienced many things, right? And I was going through this while I was trying to write my personal statement essays for law school. And as I was writing it, I want to fill it with the stories, with everything that we went through, and everything that we've gained as a result and things too. And of course, it should still be in that manner too. But something that kept coming up is that I became very fixated on trying to present some parts of the stories that we've gone through in the last 20 years. And because of that, it was some of the stories, they've lost their significance, or it just doesn't tie into the present moment. And in the more iterations I wrote of the personal statement, I was like, wow, this is kind of getting shallower and shallower. It's not to say that the story is shallow, but it's just that we're it is is this the only thing that I'm depending on? Not just for this personal statement, but is this the only thing that's fueling me in terms of why I want to live according to providence and why I want to do this? And the obvious answer was no, right? But then I was writing it in such a way where the entirety of why I want to go to law school and pursue this endeavor was based on these very old things. And so when the message came up, and I guess just and it ties to the message for last week, right? To be born again in the body and in the spirit. And so I really felt the need to abandon all of these things. And I was really moved when something was saying to throw away the old things. Only then, will we gain new things, right? And how he was saying, do you think that God won't give you new things? Right? And that was a very moving thing, because it's so true, right? God gives us new things. And, working with Pastor Sky, I remember when I first went to Hawaii, I was asking him because, he's missionized in so many different places. So I asked him, what do you take with you when you go places? right? And because when you're traveling, you can't really take everything, and you don't even want to take everything. And so he was telling me, he like wrote down a list for me, and it was really simple, and it really spoke to like the experience that he had in this kind of thing. And it really made me think that, wow, like it's not, and we already know this too, right? But sometimes as we live, we forget this, and we kind of like take on this materialistic attitude, right? Like where we know that it's not the physical materials and the conditions that let us be capable of doing what it is that we need, right? It's us, right? It's like the spirit and the spiritual things and the things that we've gained who've made us who we are, those things that we carry with us no matter where we go. The physical things that we can replace, and the those kind of things that will be given new things, right, at each time, right? We don't need to take all of the clothes that we have, because the Lord really will dress us, in greater ways than even just the flowers in the valley. And so that was something that I really experienced while thinking of this. And as I was waking up this morning, my mind was occupied with many things, right? And so I hope that this is something that relates to you, right? And this happens to everyone, right? Like if we spend a lot of our time, on social media, or really obsessed over a problem, or obsessed over something happening right now, and obsessed over preparing for something that seems to be looming over us that we haven't yet faced, right? We're thinking about a future task that we have to do, and we're like, okay, I want to prepare myself by this. And there's concrete things that we can do, but there's also this like kind of obsession that we can have and that we can develop in these kind of times. And so when I was like praying this morning, right now for me it's still Sunday, and when I was praying to God that, oh, like please allow me to empty my thoughts, because today is your precious Sabbath day. And this is a day when we listen to the word, and already we know that if our head is just filled with our own things, we're filled with the physical things, and we cannot gain the spiritual things, and we cannot understand your word deeply. And so that was the kind of prayer that I prayed right before recording this segment too. And I think even in that moment too, it's so valuable, because I realized that is the attitude that we need to have at each time. And I really hope that this previous week, and actually just the remainder of the year, is a time when each of us will be born again in this way, to get rid of the old things. Of course, it's not to say forget the stories, but then I realized that even more so than the tangible stories, at least for us, the thing that's important that we need to carry over continually is the way that we've built a relationship with the Trinity. Right, these kind of events and these kind of actions and these kind of moments, they help build our relationship with the Trinity. And so even if we forget the stories, when we carry those relationships with us, right, how we interact with the Trinity, how we've built up, how we do that, how we pray to them, how we listen to their word, and how we clear our hearts and ask for their inspiration instead, those kind of I don't want to call them habits, but those kind of mannerisms, and that really the best word for it is that relationship is the thing that we need to carry with us at all times. And I really felt this, because the final thing that I was writing for my personal statement was, I was like changing it then. I was like, okay, I'm not going to make this about dwelling on the past and just explaining my history and stuff like that, but I'm going to be explaining who we are, like what we are doing, right? And because that constitutes who we are. And so I was like talking about various times where I've had to like deliver a message for the SS or for different churches in different circumstances, and each time delivering those messages was extremely challenging, right? Like, because I'm not a typical sermon giver like during like all of our regular messages, so it's like it always fell on very like specific times where there was like a need to be addressed. And so because of that, it was like so extremely difficult, and I had to prepare it in a different way, because really like the message was no longer just the Trinity's word, but it was something that I had to try to accommodate for everyone for that specific purpose. And I remember like one of the things that I had, one of the times I gave the message, which I might have spoken about before too, was for the Christmas message last year. And so when I was like thinking about that time, like after I found out that I'd be giving that message, I really felt that I needed to finished reading the New Testament. And, it was only a few weeks, right? So I think I remember each day I had to read the Bible for at least an hour or longer. And I was like exercising in that time and trying to do whatever it is that I could to prepare. But it wasn't just a story, but this kind of way of preparing for the message happened time and time again, like with the SS retreat that happened over the summer and the various times I've had to deliver the message to both the SS and, in different parts of the world when we were facing a specific circumstance. 316 of this year too was another time that happened. And through this I realized that it wasn't just the stories, but the way that happened, that transpired, was this relationship that I have with God, and this way of preparing that I developed over time. So it wasn't just the specific event itself, but this continuing thing that we're doing in each and every moment. And I really believe that for all people of Providence and for everyone listening at home too, that this is the thing that we have gained, right? This continuing thing, right? Providence history never ends, and so how far that we've gone in Providence history cannot end either, right? And so I really hope that, yes, for the remaining 77 days of this year, that we will be born again. We will place ourselves into the furnace, into the word, melt down the things that need to be melted out, and let the heat get rid of the things that we need to get rid of, and make ourselves anew. I really hope that it's a very hopeful message, and I really can't wait to hear maybe your reflections as there are exactly 77 days of this year. And so I'll kind of conclude today's segment with that, right? Like, what how do you feel, right? 2023 is almost over. And I know people had different thoughts about 2023 when it started, but how do you feel now that there's exactly 77 days left of this year? And what is it that you realize, and how is it that you feel that we should prepare for the end of the year and for 2024, and with everything going on in your personal life as well as everything going on in Providence too? So with this, I'll conclude today's message. I really hope that everyone enjoyed both the Sunday message and Pastor Sky's diving deep into the word, as well as the upcoming week's messages and our stories and our experiences together with the Trinity.
Okay, so another wonderful and awesome episode by Eddie Kweon with 2G Talks. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. I hope that everyone has had a wonderful, awesome weekend, and you enjoyed the October 15th Save the World prayer meeting, and I hope it just sparks something inside of you so that we can do even more for this history and be able to end this year really well. All right, so there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Monday podcast. Hope you guys had an amazing and awesome time. We will see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when